Well, well, well. Looky who we have here. It's the most majestic of all creations. More like a no-good, smelly human being. I will say one thing. You're brave to hang with me. Who am I, you ask? That's not important. All you need to know is I love slithering into the Almighty's fluffy white shithole and stirring his pot. Why? Why not? I'll show you what I mean. Come with me, you fool. Chapter 1. Who dareth trespass? God yelled with that universe-creating voice. Ah, 'tis mine enemy. Comest thou to make amends? Never. I'm here to shoot the shit. Thou'st mustn't shoot thine shit with me. Doest not my court looketh liketh a court? Or doth thee thinkest 'tis some sort of stoop where ye can stop by at thine owneth pleasureth? The angels burst into laughter, holding their sides and clapping their knees. God's a clown. Can you cut it out? You don't talk like that. You got me, but you really didn't, though. God waved his noodly brown appendage. Why are you here? Been riding dirty and couldn't help notice your creation, mankind, is garbage, you know. This sets him off when I throw salt on your kind. No, they're not. Denial isn't just a river you made in Egypt. You get angry at them. Nah, humans are my greatest achievement. Every one of them. All the time. You're telling me if one of your most obedient humans stops worshiping you, you won't get angry and regret creating it? Correct. I don't believe you. You're worshipped only by those you bless. Wouldn't you agree? No. What is this, 21 questions? The angels roared with more cackling. Your jokes are the worst. So, down there is a man you made. He's a powerful leader and teaches many to love life and fear you. You've given him a lot, wouldn't you agree? No doubt. He has submitted to you his whole life. Now, if I turn him against you, you say he will continue to worship you? He will, in a different way. He definitely won't be submitting to you anymore if I can have it my way. I'll get him to curse you. Get out of here with that jibber-jabber, Satan. So what? It's me. You're most likely going to stop here. So excellent. You can piss off. This righteous man praises you today for one reason. You blessed him. If I take his happiness away, tomorrow he'll hate you. God closed his meatball lids, rubbed his penne fingers on his unleavened temples, and replied, You're talking crazy. Want a bet? A bet? Sure. God readjusted himself in his glowing throne of metal and holes. I can do anything to him? Yes. If it's the man I'm thinking of, he will surprise you. I bet if you squash him, he will do something you wouldn't expect and show you why my creation is beautiful. Wrong. If that's what you think, he'll end up surprising you, not me, and show you what I know. Your creation is garbage. I give you permission to do unto him as you wish. One rule. You cannot let him know of our bet, the Almighty said to me. And you can't. Agreed. Come with me, you dumbass thrill-seeking human. We're going to a place where the people are friendly and the land is fertile. An operator kept his attention on the screen of a drone's controller. The operator was a thick, bearded man who stood in the shade of a date palm. For weeks, this deputy and his fellow militants had been conquering small farms and remote towns along a desert river. Last night, as the sun was setting, he and his men were welcomed into the city with 123 grain bullets firing upon them. After a night and day of bloodshed, the last line of defense was underneath his drone. They are down the street from me, 200 meters. The targets are still refusing to surrender, the dark-skinned deputy with a widow's peak and long beard said to his field commander. His field commander was far from the front line. Take me around back! I want to see, the field commander demanded, as he leaned back in his swivel chair. The deputy adjusted the throttle joystick and carefully moved the direction lever. The view on the field commander's tablet transitioned from sandy driveway to mandarin trees, flowers, and a fountain all enclosed by a high metal fence. "What's that? Zoom in there!" the field commander barked. A bronze statue of a man in a crouched position with hands raised was in the middle of the garden. The drone trespassed closer to the statue with golden medals around its neck. The two militants read the plinth's placard. "A plinth is the bottom part of the statue, dummy. It says this is the birthplace of the modest mongoose, Mohammad Hussein." "Commander, look at that," the deputy said with a smile. "I see it. Mohammad Hussein. This is a sign our nation will rule these lands again. It is another gift from God. Blessed be his name." "You are certain it is his palace?" "It's his family's palace. Does this change our mission?" "Never. They are enemies. Has not his family rejected the traditions of our people?" "But I love him. He's a great fighter, Commander. Shouldn't we negotiate? It's Mohammad Hussein's parents." The deputy heard himself questioning his commander. He instantly palmed his blistered lips to end his sentence, as sweat beaded down his temples from the heat, and due to his fear of the commander noosing his precious young in retaliation for that loosening of his treacherous tongue. The field commander paused to scratch his beard and his unibrow. Yes, this bastard has a badass unibrow. He was waiting to see if the deputy would redeem himself. The deputy glanced at his toes, rattling in the sand. "We'll execute all of them and burn it, Commander," he said. The field commander lunged forward in his chair and shouted. "If not," a string of spit popped between his canine teeth, "you'll join them, and your wives and children. We'll storm the palace now. That's right. An ounce of fear in the world's eyes is worth far more than a pound of gold from our enemy's hands. I want them killed. Advertisers will pay double for the modest mongoose's parents' execution. Send me the drone's recording. I'll forward it to production, and their deaths will be online within a day." "Bless you, Commander. That'll teach those who doubt God's plan." "The convoy with water hasn't arrived, and," the field commander pressed the red end call button. "Question me, will you?" He squinted with his cyclops' eyebrow towards the tent's opening. All was tranquil, except for the sound outside of a camel moaning at his driver. The field commander called with his deep voice to a guard. Immediately, a man with an assault rifle slung around his shoulder entered the tent. "I'm meditating with God. Keep everyone away, you hear?" "Yes, Commander." "One more thing. Cut out the tongue of one of those children of whoever the deputy is in Quadrant 1. "Yes, Commander." Once the guard disappeared behind the black flap, the bearded man turned the electronic pages over in his illuminated book of scriptures and closed its leather cover, to uncover a second computer tablet. The commander glanced at the entrance one more time. His brown pupils shifted side to side, and his pink tongue stuck out with the tap of a power button. He had privacy, so he hit the play button on a video. Chilling on a well-lit couch was a young Asian-looking woman. Her eyes were bright green with brown eyeliner, and chocolate diamond earrings hung from both petite earlobes. A bald white man with a serious overbite sat next to her. He eyeballed her before saying, "You're pretty." The model blushed. "I wanna go down on you." The male actor couldn't pronounce shit on a stick with his underdeveloped jaw. "You want to go down on me?" asked the uber-feminine being with 3 rose-red hearts tatted on her breastplate. "Yes." "You'll be tasting shit if you do, darling," she said, flipping her long black hair. "Why?" the bald dude with a tiny chin asked. "That overbite." He didn't hesitate to slap the woman hard and tear off her shirt and bra. He slapped her tits and ass until they were swollen and spit down her throat. The field commander bounced up and down in his seat and clapped his hands. He heard his own commotion and stopped making noise. He paused the video and waited for his guard to enter. But the guard remained outside. So he hit the symbol on his tablet screen of a triangle pointing towards the right. The video of a fictitious rape resumed. The field commander remembered to blink as he pulled his white, ankle-length robe above his knees. In this manner, the mattress actress won new fans from pole to pole. For in this fair maiden's role, she let the ugly fool move from hole to hole, then willingly gobbled his whole pole. At the same time, across the sand dunes, the deputy pressed the return button. He handed the controller off to his second-in-command and stomped out into the street. He avoided potential flanking fire by ordering his men to muster along the rock wall. The veteran fighters slowly gathered on the sidewalk outside the Hussein's palace grounds. Some yawned. Others palmed their hairy faces, but every man blinked with eyelids as heavy as the rifle pitched on his shoulder. Despite the fatigue and typical experience of consoling, a brother-in-arms panicking because he's covered in blood from a fatal gunshot wound, these combatants stood as proud as any man could in this situation. A situation which I can't fail to mention to you includes sand in or near every orifice, and a headscarf soaked in sweat. These fortunate men held tight the butts of their rifles and listened to their orders of execution spoken by a man whose eyes stared back, through smart glasses, with a vacant gaze. After the briefing, the soldiers fell in unison on their stomachs and prayed about their much-anticipated journey to heaven. Minutes later, the unibrowed bastard received the file in his genius email. He soon was watching petrified people and peaceful protesters being slain by his soldiers' bullets and scimitars. Meanwhile, in another of Earth's deserts, two men waited under the awning of a mixed martial arts center. They both were watching their automatically scrolling news feeds. The one 18-year-old man with orange hair looked up with bright blue eyes from his wrist phone. "Your bro's amazing." "He is blessed," the dark-skinned man with a black full beard replied. "They say here 4 billion people are tuning in. The biggest viewing ever," the copper top with a stupid patchy beard shouted and pointed towards his wrist phone. "He has to be nervous. I mean, this fight determines it all." Brannon glanced up from his wrist phone. "You're getting caught up in propaganda," his friend said. "Yeah, I can't help but get into it. Your bro always stays cool before a fight, but this fight's serious. He's got to be stressing a little more than normal." "He says it never crosses his mind." Brannon shot both hands off his ginger temples and said, "Man, he's the real deal. His strength comes from God, as does his superhuman speed. He says the same thing, but he's something else." Brannon continued to shout. "The whole world knows it. It's like he can predict his opponent's moves. It's that, but more." "When we were little," this was back in our father's country, Brandon's blue eyes were wide open, waiting to hear more. "I remember watching Mohammad as a little kid, juggling and playing alphabet beanbag toss with my friends. Yeah, Daniel told me. You guys would keep throwing him beanbags and he'd keep catching them all and hitting every hole. Yep, just to challenge himself. I knew then my little bro was special. I mean, big little bro." "There!" Brannon shouted. "They're always the last to leave." The tinted glass door swung open and out stepped two brothers. Following them was a shirtless, sweaty man. "I tell you that singer can't make music or clothes. That damn—" "Nobody uses profanity around these three brothers." "Darn! Lawsuit will be thrown from court. Everyone knows your company was the first, Mohammad. Plus, your products are way better and the money goes towards a cause." The tallest and longest bearded man listened and nodded his head as the shirtless dude spoke. "That's very kind of you, Marshal. It's just odd. I don't understand how they can sue me. I've been in operation for over a year, and now they want me to go to a deposition next month. God will provide." Marshall smiled as the man with a long beard responded. Marshall's front tooth made of gold reflected a beam of sunlight. "God does provide. God does everything for a reason on his schedule. You told me that last night with my problem, which again, I'm so glad you actually cared enough to listen to me talk about. God loves you and me. He'll give you only what you can handle," the tallest dark-skinned man said. The shortest brother added, "Praise God. It'll be fine, champ. Society knows the good your company does." Marshall flung his hand into the athlete's hand and bounced it with enthusiasm. "Praise God. I'll close up here, sir." He shook hands with the shortest brother and wiggled his jawbone. "I'm still feeling that right hook from you, Daniel." "Step to the side, not back next time," Daniel instructed. "I'm working on it. Crush him tomorrow night, champ. God bless." The sparring partner pounded his own chest with his fist and stepped back into the gym. "Our raid says it's going to be here in 3, 2, Daniel said, looking at the tiny window in his vision via his smart glasses. Brannon took Muhammad's sports bag. "Pulling in now," Muhammad said, as he led his two brothers and their mutual friend into the parking lot. "It's too hot, even in these shorts," Brannon said. Brannon's pale skin reflected the desert sunlight like a sheet of copy paper. This is not hot, Daniel said. Yes, it is. I can't stand this heat. I already need a new shirt. A Mercedes-Benz van pulled right up to Mohammed's sandals. Darting around the front was a short, pudgy body dressed to the nines. Hey, brothers. It was the MGM Grand Chauffeur. The chauffeur rubbed his fingertip underneath the handle. The door slid open, and the man in a pressed suit stepped back to let Muhammad and his older brothers jump in the van. Hey, champ. All the sharps in town are going nuts. Syndicates are up or down on everything. 1 minute I can get my number, and the next they're saying I can't. It's like a seesaw. What do you mean? I've never seen anything like this, and I have an hour until props close. That's because it's the biggest fight ever in AGC history, Daniel said as he stepped inside the van after Muhammad. God favors him, aren't I right, brother? Daniel asked. You know I don't know. I've prayed hard. I know that. God is the greatest, and he does favor you, Daniel said. Are you betting on me? Is that what you're saying? Muhammad asked. The chauffeur flicked down his driving cap and blinked. Muhammad wanted his chauffeur to understand he was no fortune teller, only an honest man. Brandon came up behind the driver and entered the van. Excuse me. Muhammad believed continuously betting money on an unpredictable outcome with the intent of winning more money was a weakness. So he said, Don't gamble on me. Ah, air conditioning, Brandon said to the crew. Chee-hoo! The chauffeur leaned his wide body forward and high-fived Muhammad. The door closed, blocking the view of a smiling Hawaiian and a shaking Shaka sign, but not before winking one more time at Muhammad. Muhammad helped himself to a sports drink from the stainless steel mini-fridge. Just a sip. Daniel extended his hand above the lid. Muhammad nodded. They drove down the street. News on, Gabriel said. The fore and aft screens brightened with a broadcast of world news. Images of an ambulance on fire and streams of blood running down a familiar-looking macadam road silenced the men. Bombs are exploding throughout the city. The killings are indiscriminate. It is a dark time indeed for this city. A city which has not seen much peace in the last 10 years. We see the insurgents are heavily armed. They are using... Mute, Muhammad said. The street journalist's voice turned off and everyone looked at each other. Muhammad ignored the screens and focused on the happenings out the window. A yellow seashell atop a tall pole and a big golden letter M 60 feet up in the air both passed his view. A crowd of people waiting impatiently at a bus stop went flashing by along with sights of a glass pyramid, sphinx, and obelisk. God is the greatest, and he will protect them, Muhammad said. His brothers and Brandon shouted together, God is great! I had a great workout back there, and our brother's ready for tomorrow night. Whose Russian's head is going to be on a platter? Boris's head, that's who, Daniel stated. Muhammad's takedowns are vicious, straight vicious. He's going to get on top of Boris and rain on him, Gabriel said, as he rested his feet up on the touchscreen ottoman. You know, Muhammad's takedowns are thorough, but I've been watching his flying knee. It is hitting harder than ever. I mean, it is really powerful now. He'll end it with a flying knee, Brandon said. Yeah, Muhammad's flying knee is way stronger, Gabriel said. You both are wrong. His flying knee has always been perfect. Brandon and Gabriel did a double take towards Daniel and waited for him to elaborate. Remember Masahiro Akano? Daniel asked. Masahiro Akano was a fighter who claimed to be the reincarnation of Nighten Doraku. I'm not stopping to explain Nighten Doraku, dummy. What's important is this badass Masahiro lost to Muhammad in the hexagon. Gabriel and Brandon echoed the name, Masahiro Akano, as a Floridian would if bringing up the name of a past hurricane. To Gabriel, Brandon, and Daniel, every single fighter Muhammad stepped into the hexagon with was recognized as a force that could devastate their lives. I remember. Muhammad did finish Masahiro with a flying knee, Brandon said, nodding his head. You have to study every fight like me if you love this sport, Daniel said to Gabriel and Brandon. You know we all do, and I'm just saying Muhammad's flying knee is even better than when he fought in Japan, Brandon said in his defense. Muhammad, has the new Muay Thai trainer helped your flying knee? Daniel asked. Angelica's calling. Muhammad tapped the lime green answer button on his transparent wrist phone. The view of thin, black hairs atop his bronze skin suddenly vanished and were replaced with the streaming footage of an African-American woman holding a pillow. Hey you, where's your smile? Muhammad asked his wife. Angelica sat upright on their bed and flipped the corners of her lips into a smile. I couldn't text. I need to see you, she whispered at the smart wall in their bedroom that displayed her husband's face. Angelica! Brandon yelled in the cab. Sup, Angelica? Gabriel shouted. Thanks for your ticket, Angelica. You're the best. I love you, Brandon said. She's about to tell me something important. Be quiet. Thanks. The sight of so much hair on his jaw, cheeks, and neck demanded respect. Sorry about that. We're just leaving the gym and they're hyped. What's up? I'm scared. About? Have you talked to your parents? No. They called last week, but I was busy. I'm calling them tonight. I talked to them. Your father was showing me a drone out his window hovering around your statue, and after talking about your fight, the call dropped. I tried to call him back, but couldn't. The streaming video of Mohammad looking down suddenly shook up and down, because Mohammad was clenching his right hand into a fist. She heard knuckles cracking. Daniel, Gabriel, and Brandon were listening to Angelica. Mohammad peeled his phone from his wrist and flattened the device by whipping it in a downward motion. By placing his wrist phone on his ear, the conversation automatically transitioned into a private call. Angelica's view of Mohammad talking to her on their smart wall changed into a photo of Mohammad with gloves in the air and a crown on his sweaty head. I'm worried your family is... Stop. I can't. I'm sorry, honey, but you must know. Angelica stopped herself from crying. I can't do anything about it. I mean, what can I do? Nothing. The words were painful to say. I'm sure they're fine, the young man continued. Angelica sniffled. I know. I work myself up, like you say. It was so scary, Mohammad. I saw your dad was armed and your mom was screaming in the background, then the call ended. For no reason. It just ended. God is the greatest. He will protect them. Plus, I told you my father can handle anything through the strength God gives him. You're right. He will. She dried her eyes. You all right, Smiles? This isn't like you. You were smiling a second ago. Let me see you smile again, like you always do. I can't. Come on. Her eyes opened wide and she smiled a brilliant toothpaste commercial smile. Her white pearls contrasted her dark skin. That's it. Now, I can go. Hold on, please. One more thing. I know you're busy. It's about the other night. I didn't mean to say what I said, Angelica continued. I'm in the car with everyone, not now. Mohammad said this as he glanced at his brothers and friend in the hopes they had stayed ignorant of what happened to the couple. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I miss you. I miss you too. I'll see you Sunday. I love you. Love you. Mohammad slapped his phone around his ulna and radius bone, and as the device folded, it instantly became clear, except for the time display. Daniel asked, while watching his own wrist phone, Everything all right, champ? Yeah. Wait, something's off. Mohammad grabbed his belt strap and then, suddenly, the Mercedes-Benz violently switched lanes. Everyone went flying forward in a straight line. The faint sound of tires screeching and horns blaring entered the soundproof cab. What the? Daniel shouted. A taxicab driven by a female cruised past them in the wrong direction. Would you look at that? Brandon yelled. I hope God protects her, Mohammad said. Somebody has to, Brandon said. Yeah, that does it. I'm never riding my bike down here, Gabriel shouted. Everyone's wrist phones flashed and beeped, except for Mohammed's phone. Look at my heart rate, brothers, Brandon said. His wrist phone screen showed a heart rate of 159 beats per minute. The men burst into laughter, as Daniel and Gabriel showed their heart rates were high too. However, Mohammad was unfazed. His body reacted differently to adrenaline. The chauffeur appeared on the front and rear screens. Champ, you okay? I'm sorry. Another smart car martyr came right at me in her taxi. The MGM Grand Ambassador was so worked up he was speaking in his Hawaiian accent. Joshua Kalili's name and other details appeared under his face. He's good. In fact, he lost a pound in his pants, Gabriel said. Nobody laughed, except the chauffeur. Crude, Daniel said, wrinkling his face. Tasteless, Mohammad said. That's a good one, Joshua said to Gabriel as he put up the Shaka sign and continued. I tell you, brah, it's getting bad. She's the third one this month. What they need to do is have driverless roads everywhere, Daniel demanded. No, brah, no can. Auto cars are bad. But hijacking smart car taxis and crashing them into others in the fleet is bad too, you know? Joshua asked. Well, I mean, every car should be an auto 100p, but not this one. MGM Grand chauffeurs are too important for the experience. They're just as important as the steering wheel itself. Joshua feigned a smile. But I'm serious at the same time. Get rid of them. That crazy taxi cab is the prime example for why dumb cars need to be banned. If not, people like her get behind the wheel, and good grief, all of it comes apart. That was a taxi driver. The driver looked straight ahead and didn't comment further, because he was paid to drive, not debate. He cut transmission to the cab and the screen resumed with muted news, which to these men had headlines loud enough to wake their parents. Get it? Because they bled out and are dead? Did you get it on your smart glasses? Gabriel asked Daniel as they reached a controlled stop. Yeah, there are already people commenting on my channel. Most people are saying how quick Mohammad was. I saw Mohammad react and knew something was up too. Brandon interrupted. Yeah, me too. Oh, that one's funny. Someone said she's getting a tip of the passenger's spear, Gabriel said. Let me see, Brandon said. Show us, Daniel said. Gabriel sent a copy of his funny followers' comment to everyone's phone by tapping his screen and flicking his finger towards their bodies. Your followers are funny. I'm gonna thumbs up that person's comment, Brandon said, with his eyes on his wrist phone. The light turned green and they started moving. Yeah, they are, some of them. But Mohammed's fans are the best. He has all my fans and all of yours combined. He has a super account, Gabriel said. You know, speaking of super, I about supermaned it into you. Luckily, Mohammad grabbed me, Daniel said to Gabriel. Are your fans saying anything? Brandon asked. I don't know. You should buckle up, Mohammad said as the sound of clicking buckles filled the cab. Pray with me, he continued. Mohammad led the men in prayer to protect anyone that may have been injured by the ill-tempered, unemployed woman. Mohammad, Gabriel, Daniel, and Brandon rode towards an enormous bronze lion. Behind this monument, a giant photograph of Mohammad projected onto the Las Vegas Strip. The United States of America's flag waved behind him, and the Russian Federation flag flapped behind his opponent. Look at that stallion, Daniel said. Next to Kabsa on a plate, Gabriel said. The men nodded their heads in unison. Boris is not talented like our bro, Daniel said, while turning his face towards his youngest brother. Mohammad flashed a half smile because he was thinking about his parents and guarding his brothers from hearing the news. Joshua delivered them to the front door of the ballroom. He appeared in his black suit and black tie on their cab screens. And here we are. Somehow we're alive, Brandon said. You saved our lives. Thanks, Mohammad said. All part of my job. And thanks for the info. Joshua winked again at Mohammad. If I were Mohammad, I'd be thinking the son of a bitch driving me around and winking all the time has Bell's palsy or is acting suspicious. But Mohammad was unconcerned and shows you he's a naive dumbass like I told God. Of course, just follow it. God will bless you tenfold if you do. The sliding door opened and Joshua was already standing in front of the men. Mohammad stepped out and stood tall in the blinding sunlight and tapped his phone. Here, for your quick reflexes, Mohammad said, looking up from his wrist phone. Joshua smiled ear to ear because he was being tipped. Oh, you don't have to. Not after what you told me. Mohammad shook his hand and Joshua's wrist phone automatically received money. Take it. Gotta go. He led his men to the fighters already forming a line. Chapter 2. Once the four were inside the building, Mohammad asked, Where's Williams? Follow me. Daniel's smart glasses could find the location of the aged white-haired man in a crowd of hundreds. Mixed martial artists in the crowd recognized Mohammad and watched his every movement. A fighter with face paint depicting a skull backed up to look at Mohammad. He dashed his hands out onto his hips and puffed up his tatted chest. How can he be the best fighter, this man thought. Another hexagoner in a cowboy hat crossed his arms and dropped his eyebrows. I'd knock that clown out, this man thought to himself. A tubby man, who was raised in the hexagon, saw Mohammad blazing through the crowd. Butterball moved back a step, tightened his lips, and straightened his spine, then resumed talking with his only second, as if Mohammad wasn't on his thoughts too. Daniel walked towards the arrow visible in his lens until he saw Williams's tall frame sticking up above random heads. Williams! Daniel screamed at the top of his lungs. Williams stopped chatting with his cleft chin and turned from another trainer to look for the familiar voice. Williams locked eyes with Mohammad and his brothers. They reunited in the center of the crowd and shook hands. How was training? Your eyes check out at the exam this morning? It was noisy, so William shouted to be heard. "Yeah, I'm an eagle," she said. Mohammad yelled. "Good. Sorry I couldn't make it to the gym. The commission and the media are bullshitting around with Oculus, and they both want me to describe the smell of it, if you know what I mean." "Yeah, no need to curse. So it went well for us or no?" "Sorry for swearing, champ. You're getting 28% on domestic sales if you win. Arnold's lazy. He could have negotiated more. He's the best attorney in the biz. He just sits around in his expensive chair and satin clothes, eating. You and I know that. Muhammad. He's a smooth talker. Plus, he scored you 30% in African Union broadcasts. That's better. When's the show starting?" "You can't wait to get in there and fight?" Williams asked. "I can. I'm just ready to get weighed and eat." The brothers acquainted Williams with the tale of the crazy smart car martyr and her mission to destroy smart cars for totaling her driving career. It was not long before a raspy voice spoke to the fighters. "Welcome to the start of AGC 410. Grant Thomas was the commentator. His patented vocal cords made Tom Waits sound like Freddie Mercury. The crowd slowly fell silent, and each person focused on the recognizable voice. "Yo, everyone! Welcome!" The pronunciation of every vowel was hoarse, every consonant stiff. Each sentence roared like a steam-powered locomotive climbing uphill. Mixed martial arts fan loved to hear him narrate a blood sport. "We all know why we're here. We all have been here before. We're professionals, right? So, tonight, I don't want any drama. Tomorrow night, you'll be whooping ass. Tonight, you're staying cool. You're gonna go up on stage over there. Paul's gonna weigh you, and you'll stand next to your main squeeze." Grant paused. Laughs were peppered through the crowd, distinctly from newbies. Muhammad stood with his crew and looked on with familiarity of the weigh-ins. This young man with a hooked nose and pupils set close together was scanning the back of heads, until he finally feasted his sights on the Russian concussion. His opponent stood with hairy forearms folded over each other. A noticeable scar ran across his lip and down his cheek. The damaged tissue was a reminder of a knife fight Boris had as a lawless teenager. However, his most distinguishing feature was his low forehead and knuckle-like brow ridge. This three-head abruptly rose into a bald scalp. Boris's manager, Ivan, conversely, was a short man who chose the skirted eggshell mullet for his look. Paired with this ridiculous hairstyle was Ivan's gigantic mole. That melanin growth on his left cheek stood tall in defiance to what you humans believe is aesthetics. Between Boris and Ivan was a blonde-haired man dressed in a tracksuit thumbing out his gold chain. The Russian concussion and his crew of 2 were listening to their translator. "You'll both have your photos taken and you'll get out of there. Muhammad, bring your crew to the front. Everyone else get behind the champ and enter in a reasonable fashion. Thank you." Muhammad accepted his event wristband and walked inside the ballroom. Muhammad left the physician's booth and returned to his crew. "How'd it go? His hands warm?" Brandon asked. "Very funny. Where are my brothers?" Daniel's about to finish his interview with MMA News. Gabriel's reading the news. Brandon's freckly forearm raised up and pointed towards Gabriel, sitting and staring at his phone. "Oh, he heard?" Brandon shrugged his shoulders. "You knew?" "A little." "Really?" "Don't want to get into it. Is he all right?" "He's all right, I guess. I mean, you guys have a lot happening." "Are you all right, more importantly?" Brandon asked. "I'm blessed by God, thank you. I'm going to talk to him." "Remember, you're going up soon." Muhammad walked through the crowd of anxious fighters to find his older brother. "What's up? Why are you by yourself?" Gabriel looked up from his phone. "I figured it's important to tell you, but the fighting is getting worse. They're not even letting the Red Crescent in." Muhammad waved his hand and said, "I know. Have faith. God will protect them." Gabriel switched out of the news with a swipe of his finger and resumed scrolling through photos of Kanuni motorcycles. "God will protect them. Knowing that's a relief, brother," he said, to dissimulate his fears. But Muhammad didn't notice this as a make-myself-feel-good lie, so he bolstered Gabriel's delusion by adding, "Understand, God is just and won't have them murdered." "Good," Gabriel said, with a nod. "You humans are so stupid when it comes to accepting the truth." Muhammad, Daniel, and Gabriel sat in metal chairs. Boris's highlights played on Muhammad's wrist phone when he finally heard Grant's flu-like voice shouting, "Give it up for Boris, the Russian concussion Babakov!" Immediately, the crowd responded with a mixture of hate and love. They're booing him. Can you hear it? Daniel asked. Gabriel and Brandon were chomping at the bit to enter the stadium. Of course, Gabriel answered. Oh yeah, that fool's done, Brandon snarled. You ready, champ? Williams asked. Muhammad stood, slapped his phone on his wrist, and yelled to Gabriel, Yep, bring me my crown. His older brother raced to the nearest AGC representative. Muhammad was delivered his golden band by security. He picked up his crown from off a golden tasseled sable fur pillow and placed it on his head. Muhammad's head bore the weight of the solid gold band. Wearing it made time slow down, it seemed to Muhammad, because only one man in the world could wear this universally recognized item. All the nosebleeds, fat lips, broken bones, and gallons of sweat sacrificed over the years were why this crown was right now on his head, and by possessing it, it magically evaporated his anxiety related to the upcoming cage match. You're gonna kill him, William shouted, looking directly into Muhammad's eyes. If God allows. His crew started beating their chests in unison and pounding their palms together. Louder and louder and faster his crew's chanting became, until they heard Grant announce, Please give it up for the modest mongoose, Muhammad Hussein, like a Mongolian throat singer. Muhammad was bouncing with excitement as he shoved the curtain out of his way and sprinted into the ballroom. Behind the gate congregated hundreds of screaming fans. A young father supported his son on his shoulders. Maggot Boy waved his hand at the two, and everyone else, as Gabriel and Brandon emptied a cardboard box of Muhammad's smart apparel into the crowd. A frond of arms waved towards each falling OLED shirt and OLED hat. Muhammad hurried up on stage. I crush you again. A shirtless Boris punched his left palm and flexed his pectoral muscles. Boris's manager, Ivan, stood behind him holding a shirt, shoes, and a tiny water bottle. He was shouting to Muhammad, too. The tracksuit guy stood expressionless, flouncing his jaw with bubblegum. Easy, Muhammad. Boris is shitting an axe over here because of you. Grant laughed with his eyes closed at his own words, and the crowd loved everything happening on stage. Tomorrow, my crown. Dwayne Dwight, the president of AGC, finally put his forearm up and told Boris to shut up and relax. Boris stopped yelling and dropped his fist slowly. Muhammad was called forward by the event coordinator, David. Come on, man, ignore him. Take your crown and shoes off and let's go. Step up to the scale. Muhammad stepped out of his flip-flops, removed his crown and wrist phone, and handed them to Gabriel and Brandon. He peeled off his shirt, revealing a body with 4% fat. Muhammad spread out his arms, squeezed his fists, and tensed his biceps as he walked towards the scale. The crowd's roar lengthened and deepened as he leaped with confidence onto the device that Paul was busy recalibrating. Stop moving! Paul, the ring physician, shouted. Muhammad dropped his hands. The scale read 216 pounds. Paul screamed to Grant, 216! 216. Thanks, champ. Get your picture. Muhammad pointed towards his crown. The crown returned to his head. He looked at the Russian meathead, swaying his body and staring right back at him. 3 models in bikinis watched Muhammad strut by them. Muhammad's heartbeat accelerated as he approached this man with a tiny forehead and giant-like features. They came nose to nose, and Muhammad threw his fists up for the pose. The Russian concussion launched his titanic knuckles towards Muhammad's soft face. Immediately, Boris was shoved back by a police officer. The haymaker accidentally clipped the officer's shoulder, and the man instantly crumpled. Daniel pitched Muhammad's flip-flop at Boris, and it ricocheted off the top of his dome and flew into the darkness, like a pebble deflecting off a turtle shell. Williams simultaneously ripped Muhammad away from the scuffle. The music stopped, and the crowd screamed with excitement. Quickly, everybody on stage smashed together to separate Boris and Muhammad. However, Boris was army crawling towards Muhammad between calves and feet. The Russian concussion saw Muhammad's dark-skinned legs before him and elbowed his body faster across the stage. He snatched hold of Muhammad's leg, but before the knuckle-dragger could sink his teeth into it, Muhammad yanked back, and Boris was pulled onto his feet by 10 troopers. The fray calmed and order was restored. The music resumed, and Grant shouted into the microphone, Holy cow! Were you about to bite him? Boris, why would you do that? Everything is fine, folks. Grant put the microphone in Boris's face, but Boris snatched the microphone from Grant. He coiled his bratwurst fingers around the tiny cone and said, "He hits first." Boris already had a red mark on his 3 head from the flip-flop. "Give me my mic back. That's my job to hold it." Grant regained his grip on the mic. "So, tomorrow, in the hexagon, you'll be allowed to touch your opponent. You don't do it during weigh-ins. Christ almighty. Will you win the heavyweight championship tomorrow night?" "I smash faggot." "I see you've picked up some words from our country. You know, I've never seen in my 18 years so much hatred." A roar arose from 1,000 fans. "You really don't like your opponent?" "Duh." "Good luck tomorrow. Now go speak with the Las Vegas Police Department." Grant walked over to the other side of the stage. Ivan was screaming at Boris as they descended the stage with a cameraman. "Believe it or not, I was promised he wouldn't do that." The fans clapped and laughed at Grant. "That was close. Is your leg all right? Did he get you?" "No, I was quick." "What an animal. Your crown stayed on your head. Wonder if it's a sign." The models shyly laughed as they returned to their stations they had abandoned in the commotion. Grant placed his arm around Muhammad's shoulder. Muhammad sipped his apple juice and answered, "Maybe, God willing." "Maybe? You okay?" "Yes. I could have knocked him out, but I'm doing what my boss says and fighting in the hexagon." From the podium, Dwayne thumbs upped Muhammad. Grant let out a slow, wheezy laugh and looked up at the scumbag with sparkles from stage lights in his shit-colored eyes. "The fans might see you knock him out tomorrow, you're saying?" "Am I going to knock him out? I'll try. I prepared for this fight much more than our last 2 fights. I worked harder. I never left the gym, it seems, in the last 2 months. I've trained with new people. I'm fighting tomorrow and believe God, praise his name, will test me and reveal the true winner. I want to add, I will not let my country down. This is my place. This is my home now. He came here to the United States to lose." His words filled the ballroom. Everyone stood tall and applauded their champion. Some in the crowd shed a tear, overcome with the emotion. This was their fighter. Other people hugged their neighbors because they couldn't hug Muhammad. Everyone knew, including Muhammad, he was the preferred fighter. "All right, fam. You heard it here. Good luck tomorrow." Muhammad and his crew left the stage. Daniel swam out in search of the missing flip-flop in the sea of flashing camera lights. AGC 410 is going to be insane. I'm not going to be able to sleep. I'll see you all tomorrow night. After dinner, Muhammad and his crew returned to the penthouse floor. They walked past the placard, designating the area a 5-diamond room. The exhausted gang of athletes removed their shoes as each of their wrist phones simultaneously sounded off with a man shrieking at a low volume. They tapped their wrist phones and the quiet, trailing voice stopped, to be replaced with a compass, pointing east. Brandon shouted, "Oh no! Look! Hurry, put it up right!" Gabriel said. "Wow, champ! I got it!" Daniel said, leaning down and putting Muhammad's left sandal on its sole. "Thanks. Didn't realize it was on its side." Muhammad resumed walking towards the carpeted dais with his crew trailing him. "Open," Muhammad said. The sliding glass door gently opened and he stepped out onto the terrace. "Man, it's sticky," Brandon said, as he walked behind Muhammad. The air was electric, and the sky was brownish-black in color from the city lights. They stepped on their prayer mats. Muhammad closed his eyes. His crew closed their eyes. Muhammad concentrated on believing God would protect his parents. Muhammad crossed his arms and recited the prayer. "God is the greatest. In the name of God, most gracious and most merciful, all praise is due to you, my God. You are Lord of all that exists." As you and I watch them praying, let's think about how little they know and what God has gotten himself into with me. Muhammad entered his master bedroom. The lights automatically turned on and a smart window illuminated to show a slowly swirling orange and blue fractal against a bright black backdrop. The time read in the corner of the smart window. 10 p.m., Friday, April 15th, 2033. He climbed Pillow Hill and slid under a heavy comforter. Call parents. There was a silence as Muhammad waited for someone to answer his call. 20 seconds later, a masculine voice spoke to Muhammad. "There is no local network. Please check back momentarily." The smart window showed an animation of a red circle with a line through it, flashing over an electrical bolt. Mohammad stared at the animation and waited for it to change. Unbelievable. Call Uncle John. Again, there was no communication with his family. God is great. Mohammad was thinking about Angelica. He was lost in his thought of Angelica and what she'd said before he flew to Vegas. She wanted his affection, but he could not perform. He recalled laying atop her, struggling to open his eyes as 100 sneezes went flying out at 100 miles per hour. She'd covered herself with the blanket, waiting for him to stop sneezing out mucus on her and calling him weak. Call Angelica. The wireless speakers hummed a ringing tone. Angelica answered. Hey, Smiles, he said. She flexed the muscles at the side of her mouth because she loved hearing her husband call her that. Brown eyes. What are you doing? Mohammad asked. Oh, nothing. You seem much better from earlier. I am, Angelica answered. So you're doing nothing? Well, I'm watching your fight with that Russian man. The last fight? Angelica flicked her fingertip across her wrist phone screen and towards their smart wall. Muhammad's face dominated their smart wall back home in front of Angelica, and her attention was on her man. The only one that counts, she replied. He smiled and said, Good. You're up late. Yeah, I was with my girlfriends at the temple. All day, probably? Yeah, I heard that man tried to punch you. How'd you know? I've been watching you on lots of different channels. Oh, have you? You're a fan addict? Number one. Muhammad looked at her, and her teeth were as white as her sclera. Sclera is the name for the white part in your eyes, assholes. Angelica continued. I miss you. I know, Smiles. I'm trying to make things better for us. It's my responsibility. Well, you are a great provider and a great husband. Yeah, but I'm talking about what happened the other night. She lowered her head and said, I was in the wrong for saying that to you. Mohammad wanted to yell at her when it happened, and again right now, but for him to get vengeance by saying hurtful things would make matters worse. Plus, it would be a sin in his stupid-ass mind to hold a grudge. I forgive you. You were frustrated, and I was frustrated. He waited for her to respond. A sweat drop dropped down her head, and she frowned. I don't want you thinking something's wrong with me. You are so beautiful. You don't realize. That's why I talked to the doctor about it at weigh-ins. Did you? Yeah. You've never done it before. It was a one-time thing, I'm sure. I was terrible to say those things. That's what he said. It won't happen again to you. I'll see our doctor about it when I'm back, in case it happens again. You shouldn't. I'll never say. That's all there is to say. I know you'll never say something like that again. I'm sorry. I let my emotions control me, and I don't think. I know. I married you, and I accepted your impulsiveness. So, there's nothing else to say. As for the rest, I prayed to God, blessed be his name, to protect my parents and us. He has blessed both of us. Muhammad agreed by nodding his head. Tomorrow he will test me. You have a gift from God, my love. Everyone says it. That's why you have billions of fans following you, and you thank God for it all. That's why I married you, and why everyone loves you. Yeah. Have you heard from your family? No. I tried calling. It still says there's no connection. I tried calling my uncle, but there was nothing. You prayed to God to protect them, and so has everyone at the temple. I know. The rest is in the just and perfect Creator's hands. I have to go to sleep. I'll see you when I close my eyes. I'll be praying for them when I wake up. Thank you, Smiles. I love you. Don't forget to say your prayers before bed. I already did, she responded. Night. Angelica's transmission ended, and the smart glass returned to the sight of a black screensaver with blue and orange fractals. Muhammad pulled the covers up to his shoulder and closed his eyes. Play sleep music. The sound of rain droplets hitting a tin roof, accompanied by binaural beats, played from speakers. Chapter 3. The next morning, Muhammad's mind responded to the stimuli flowing into his opened eyes by thinking first of putting Boris into a concussion with his fists. The master bedroom was dark, because the curtains had drawn themselves shut during sunrise. In the silent, unlit room, his second thought was to make contact with his family. Muhammad said in a deep voice, "Call parents." Still no ring. God is protecting Mummy and Dad, he whispered. This bullshit delusion allowed him to again focus on his obligations tonight. Genius, turn on morning relaxation music and open the curtains. The curtains separated, and the room illuminated as an oud played. After stretching like a lion, Mohammad tossed away the sheets and swung his feet off the bed. His heels sunk into the soft carpet. He heard a bubble-popping noise, and on the smart window was a message, read aloud by MGM Grand's digital ambassador. Good morning, Mohammad. Would you like breakfast this morning? Mohammad walked to the bathroom, where the same video and same message appeared on the smart mirror. I'll have a rolled omelet with spinach and feta cheese, orange juice, and sourdough bread with grape jelly. Send my breakfast order to my crew. His words were written and the order submitted to the chef, as well as a receipt sent to his brothers and friend. Mohammad sat on the toilet seat to piss. The music paused, and a voice with Mohammad's accent spoke. Incoming call from William's manager. Mohammad said, Yes, answer. Morning. What are you doing? I didn't wake you up, did I, champ? No. He stood up and cleaned himself, as the toilet automatically flushed. Oh, could you open the door? I'm outside with Taylor. With Taylor? Sure, I'll be down. Mohammad bounced down the feathery steps and opened the front black door. I just woke up. William stepped out of his sneakers and instructed Taylor to remove her shoes, too. Morning. You sleep well? Williams was slow in his speech and shy in his movements. I guess, Mohammad answered as he rubbed his eyes. They walked into the kitchen. Scumbag set a drinking glass under the refrigerator spigot. A tinging sound of ice pelleting glass was the only noise. Where's everyone else? Williams was frowning. I don't know. Muhammad's big brown eyes looked away from his glass swirling with aqua and scanned the penthouse. Sleeping. Muhammad sipped his ice water and noticed Williams looking down and tapping his big toe into the slate floor. What's wrong? He finally made eye contact with Muhammad. Muhammad, I have something to tell you and your brothers. You have to hear it from me. What's wrong? Time slowed down for Muhammad. He felt his stomach drop to the rock floor and sink right through it, like an anchor to both time and space. Muhammad, news came in, Williams finally answered. What is it? Muhammad raised both hands. It's best we tell him now, Taylor, a mouthpiece for AGC, demanded. Muhammad knew something had happened to his mother and father. I think nobody should say anything. That's what I friggin' think. He's gonna know before the fight through somebody. Dwayne told me it's my job to tell him. You have 3 seconds or I will. It's my family? Taylor was looking up at this man with a full black beard, straight eyebrows, and thick upper eyelids. Tell me, is my family all right? No! William shouted without blinking an eye. Taylor sighed and slowly said, Your estate was torched. 40 people, including your parents, were inside where it happened. Your mother and father are dead. The news of his parents' murder hit like a tsunami, and when his mind registered the information, it smashed him down under its weight. He angled up his head in awe, opened his palms, and relaxed his shoulders. No, Muhammad said, as he thought of his mother and father, neighbors, and childhood companions all snuffed out of existence. Taylor stepped forward and hugged him. Your family's spiritual leader was executed alongside them. It's terrible over there. It's a hellhole. I'm sorry, Taylor said, holding on to him. My father? My mummy? No. He crowbarred her off his chest. Williams whispered, There's a video, and sources confirmed it's them. Champ, this is your day. You hearing me? Your mom and dad forced you to leave to be here, to survive in America. That's right. Do you want anything, Muhammad? Do you want us to call your religious leader in Denver? Do you want us to leave you alone? Do you want to fight? Taylor asked. Of course he does. Champ, tell her you're fighting. You're not giving up because of what happened. We all lose family, Williams said, to alleviate the horror. I lost my father, he continued. Yeah, by the mad? Williams bit his tongue. Once he'd silently admitted being inexperienced with murdered parents, Muhammad looked out the window. In the distance, the peaks of the spring mountain range reached into a cloudless sky. Brown, in all its different tones from every swatch ever made, checkered this jagged pile of earth, and it brought out a feeling within Muhammad of calmness. I don't know why, but to him it suddenly made going outside appealing. Open. The glass door slowly opened, and Muhammad went out into the terrace, already too hot for bare feet. Sounds from an endlessly humming city reached Muhammad's ears, and a gust disturbed his beard. A tiny airplane in the distance inched through a measureless atmosphere. Muhammad rested his elbows on the stone wall, and he felt its sturdiness. Beneath him, traffic moved in a stream, and people of the world conversed and scurried around the strip on their morning safaris. But above them, Muhammad was far away and perceptive only of his loss. The present ocean of movement near Muhammad solidified, as he traveled down memory lane to a sandy road, facing a gray-haired petite woman. "Mum," he whispered. "Never, ever let the ignorant dominate you, my son. You must not stray from the ways of our people. You are too special." Muhammad was hearing the exact pitch of his mother's voice. "I don't know what will happen to you. I wish I did. It's so awful what's going on here. Ignorant people are here, and you must be far from them. I know that. Promise me you will fulfill God's plan for you. Don't forget, God has a special plan for you, and only you. I beg you." "I won't forget." Muhammad opened the car door. "Video chat with us as soon as Daniel and Gabriel have you. May God look out after you." She stepped closer. "And may God look out after you and Father. Tell everyone I'm off." He jumped in the back seat of a Chevrolet Suburban. "Find a woman who loves the heavens. May God protect you." The door slammed shut, and Muhammad's mother limped up to the glass to say goodbye one more time. But the sport utility vehicle quickly accelerated down the sandy road. The woman hobbled, after her son, with a cane. Fragile bones and unresponsive muscles were not stopping her from grasping one last sight of her child. She ran as fast as she could, but once he disappeared, so too did her energy. The old woman staggered, lost her balance, and fell. She lay in the sand, powerless to pull her youngest aside and freeze the moment from flowing on its own course towards what would become this insignificant Saturday. "Muhammad!" a voice called. Muhammad's eyelashes were wet. He turned around to face Daniel. Daniel widened his arms and came in to hug Muhammad,